How many of us own pets? And how many of those pets are neutered? While many of us own pets in our households, not a lot of thought goes into why they're neutered other than I don't want to breed my pet. Or worse, I do want to breed my pet because he or she would make nice puppies. It is important that we educate ourselves in order to be responsible pet owners. According to Psychology Today, Dr. Stanley Coren, professor emeritus at the University of British Columbia, states that in U.S. households there are approximately 86 million owned cats compared to 78 million owned dogs. For the purpose of this speech, I will be defining neutering to include ovarohysterectomy of cats and dogs as well as castration of male cats and dogs. The thesis of this presentation is that neutering your pets will reduce overcrowding in shelters and prevent health concerns as well as behavioral issues, all of which directly contribute to the health and well-being of your pet. In this speech, we will first discuss problems such as millions of unwanted animals, owners not being able to handle their pets, and health issues of the intact pet. We will then address direct causes like overcrowding and euthanasia in shelters, specific behavioral issues, and health problems. Finally, we will discuss the solution to all of these problems, which is neuter your pet. As a future veterinarian, I believe in the importance of educating clients on how best to care for your pet and help them live a long, happy, and healthy life. First, I'm going to explain problems associated with not neutering your pet. In the U.S. alone, there are millions of unwanted animals roaming the streets as strays or stuck in animal shelters. But we don't often think about how they get there or what we can do as a community to help prevent this from happening. Did you know that cats and dogs can go into heat and breed as early as 4 to 6 months of age? In addition, not neutering your pet can result in undesirable behavior traits that the typical owner is not prepared for. Cesar Millan, renowned dog trainer and star of Dog Whisperer on National Geographic, explains how biology dictates that a dog's drive to breed occurs every 6 months or so, and when they're not allowed to do so, they can typically act out into destructive behaviors. Not neutering can also cause health issues and shorten the life of the animal. Intact males are actually at much higher risk for prostate and testicular cancers. Veterinarian Dr. Patrick Merzim states in an AHA accredited hospital says that by age 6, 75 to 80% of unaltered male dogs will have benign prostatic hyperplasia thanks to testosterone, and by age 9 it is 95 to 100%. Intact females are also at risk for health concerns like pyometra, mammary tumors, and dystocia. Finally, it is important to note that just like people, there are numerous genetic and hereditary defects that can be passed from parent to offspring in cats and dogs, and the responsible breeder must be aware of such traits and screen for them if possible. With such a long list of health risks and concerns, do you really need to breed your dog because he or she would make nice puppies? Now, let's look at the direct results of these problems. Many animals end up in shelter situations due to irresponsible behavior of people, including accidental or unwanted breeding by pets left intact by their owners. This leads to overpopulation in the community and euthanasia in shelters. Webster's dictionary defines overpopulation as the condition of having a population so dense as to cause environmental deterioration, an impaired quality of life, or a population crash. In an article on companion animal overpopulation, the authors Forner and Geller quote that the Humane Society estimates 8 to 10 million animals every year are relinquished to shelters, and of those, approximately 4 to 5 million pets in shelters are euthanized every year. With that estimate, about 50% of our animals in shelters are euthanized each year. But how do they get there? Forner and Geller believe that professionals in the veterinary, animal control, and animal welfare fields actually believe companion animal overpopulation is a people problem as opposed to an animal problem. By reducing the number of breeding animals, we can directly affect the number of pets that end up in shelters, a majority of which will be euthanized before we ever find them homes. In addition, while neutering is not a quick fix to bad behavior, it can reduce cause for disobedience in pets. Millan explains that intact male pets are more likely to roam or wander in search of a mate, engage in aggressive behavior due to high levels of testosterone, and display territorial behavior, like licking or spraying urine. Similarly, females are also at risk for disobedient behaviors like barking, humping, and aggression due to hormonal changes. In an article in DVM 360, Dr. Karen Overall states that castration results in an androgen drop within 6 hours, and most hormones that decrease do so within about 72 hours. This means that any undesirable behaviors directly associated with neutering are likely to decrease rather quickly, and may be reduced simply by neutering. Neutering your pet can also directly prevent certain health issues and prolong the life of the animal. Intact male pets are at risk for testicular and prostate cancers caused by increased levels of testosterone. Typically, these tumors are difficult to diagnose and remove surgically, and they're very difficult to treat medically, so they can shorten the life of the pet. In addition, intact females are at risk for specific health concerns to include pyometra, seen in the upper right corner, a mammary tumor seen in the upper middle area, and dystocia. So, pyometra occurs when the uterus of a female dog becomes infected with pus and requires emergency surgery to remove. This is a life-threatening condition that, if not treated quickly, can cause death. Dr. Merriam says that by age 4, about 15% of female dogs will develop pyometra, and by age 10, that rises to 24%. Mammary tumors are caused by increased hormones as a result of intact females producing high levels of estrogens and progesterones. Dr. Overall says in her paper that risk for mammary neoplasia is only 0.5% if spayed before the pet's first heat cycle, but that rises to 26% if spayed after its second heat cycle. There are also risks associated with birth as well. Dystocia can occur when the fetus gets stuck in the birthing canal, which can be life-threatening for mom and baby. This also requires emergency C-section. So the best solution for these problems is a simple one. Neuter your pets. Many veterinarians believe that the best time to neuter your pet is between 4 to 6 months of age before they can reproduce. In an American Animal Hospital Association study on when to neuter dogs and cats, Spain et al. Looked at veterinary recommendations and health concerns and estimated approximately 70% of veterinarians recommend spaying and neutering to all of their clients. In addition, 90.3% of respondents favored neutering some or all shelter animals prior to adoption, simply for the purpose of population control. Now that we've looked at why you should neuter, let's look at how it happens. Pets are typically fasted 8 to 12 hours prior to the procedure. The veterinary team will then place an IV catheter to administer fluids, and they'll give anesthetics so the pet is completely asleep and feels no pain during the procedure. They will then place a breathing tube to allow the pet to get oxygen, and will also place vital sign monitors like pulse, respiration, and temperature. They will then clip and clean the area around a pet's abdomen. All surgical instruments used during the procedure are sterilized prior to use, and the veterinarian is gowned and gloved. The vet makes an incision along the belly and places surgical clamps around the arteries that provide blood flow to the organs. They will then remove both testicles in the male pet or the uterus and ovaries in the female pet. They will then place 2 sets of sutures, one internal suture that will actually dissolve, and then a set of external sutures, which you see after you pick up your pet from the procedure. After the procedure, the pet is sent home wearing an e-collar, which they will typically wear for about 2 weeks until the sutures come out. The vet will then see them back, and usually after the external sutures are coming out, they are good to go. During the time of rest and recovery, they are required to keep very quiet, restrict their activity to confinement, short leash box, anything that could pull or rip a stitch. Now, where can you go to get your pet neutered? Many veterinarians are trained on this procedure, so your local vet can do it for about $500 or so. You can also research low-cost spay and neuter clinics in your area. For example, Anacera Veterinary Center in Manassas and Harrisonburg has neuter services starting at just $129 for cats and $219 for dogs. Also, if you adopt a pet from a local animal shelter, most shelters require neutering pets prior to adoption, or if they're too young, we'll include in the contract that you do agree to neuter the pet and that you won't breed them. Adoption fees vary per shelter, but are usually between $50 to $300 or so, depending on the organization. The cost is calculated to include vaccination and neutering costs of the pet. In conclusion, there are many associated benefits to neutering your pet. The thesis of this presentation was that neutering your pet will directly reduce overcrowding and euthanasia in shelters, as well as prevent health and behavioral concerns, all of which contribute directly to the animal's well-being. In my speech today, we first talked about problems like unwanted animals, behavioral issues that owners can't handle, and health concerns. We then discussed overpopulation and euthanasia concerns in shelters, as well as behavioral issues that can arise from keeping the pet intact. Finally, we discussed how intact cats and dogs can be at risk for health issues like testicular and prostate cancers, as well as mammary tumors, pyometra, and birthing risks. We also went over the neutering process, including the surgery itself, what to expect, and places to go for the procedure. In order to be a responsible pet owner, it is important to be aware of what can happen when you don't neuter your pet. As pet owners, we are directly responsible for the health and well-being of our pets. Don't we owe it to them to give them the best life we can offer?